Hey, this is Chris, keeping it real. How are you doing this morning? We'll talk a little bit about responsibility. I want to talk a little bit about not being a sheep. I want to talk a little bit about, digging down into yourself and making decisions based on what's best for you. And not waiting for somebody else to tell you what to do. I think the thing about this coronavirus episode here, and of course it's more than just an episode, because from the word I'm hearing from several experts on YouTube who have the credentials to be listened to, one being the director of the Communicable Disease Center at the University of Minnesota, you can look him up, is that this is going to be about a 6-month event. It's not going to go away tomorrow, so we have to, I heard that, and then I started thinking about what he was saying, and I realized he's absolutely right. This is not something, they're closing schools for a couple of weeks. That's not going to do anything. We are going to be pretty much in lockdown mode for quite some time, and the danger is if you come out of lockdown mode sooner, then the virus could spring back up, because somebody's, until the last sick person gets well or dies, and isn't that harsh, right? Then there's still a danger of the virus reappearing. I'm sure, there is a mathematical end to it, right? Because once everybody gets infected, it can't do anything else unless it mutates, which it could. So I was listening to Rich Eisen, and he had Jay Bilas on the other day, and Jay Bilas was talking about his experiences at the ACC tournament. And he said they were all there, and it was about 10 minutes before the game, and they were kind of wondering why the game was still going on. And then word came down that the tournament was canceled, and so they all went home. And I thought about that because there was a lot more to the conversation than that, but I thought about that. I was thinking about the conversation. It always takes me a couple days to figure stuff out. I don't know. But the dog was there yesterday too. It's like I'm thinking, and not to criticize anyone, except I understand it's going to sound critical, but I think it applies to a lot of people. So I'm not really just criticizing one person. I'm criticizing a whole group of people who have decided that they are not going to make the decision to not do their jobs or go to work or be where they're supposed to be until somebody tells them not to. And that worries me, because it's like, can you not make a decision for yourself? Can you not look at the facts and say, I'm not going to go cover the ACC tournament today because the danger to my person is too great, and the danger to everyone I know, therefore, is too great. It's too much of a risk. And I understand that some people have to work, and that's just the way it is. But, if you have any kind of control over your life, like he could have gone, Jay Bilas could have gone to his boss and said, look, and he obviously knew about the virus, from the things he said. So he went there, even though he knew better. But he was going to go there because, I don't know, what was he waiting for? I guess he was waiting. And that's all I can infer, is that he was waiting for some authority to tell him he didn't need to be there. All the basketball players for Florida State were there too. I don't know if the other team showed up or not. I know Duke and NC State had previously said, we're not coming, which is like, that is, and I don't know if any individual players on any team said, there's no way in the world I'm going to this tournament. They probably, I don't know. That'd be tough to do. And it is tough to do. But at some point you have to make a decision for yourself, and if you're not willing to make that decision and stick with it, then what good is it to live in a country where you're free? If you're just going to wait for somebody to tell you not to do something when everybody plainly knows it's dangerous, but you're going to go and do it anyway, until the commissioner of the ACC or the commissioner of the NCAA says, all right, basketball's done. it's troubling to me that this is where we've come to in our country. It's like, people don't do. People wait on the government to tell them what to do. Like, the government's in charge of everything. It's like, that's not the way this country was founded, right? I mean, it's supposed to be about what the people want to do, but the people have just become so dependent upon the government. It's like, we can't. I mean, in so many subtle ways, not just money, but it's just like, well, let's just tell them what to do. Well, you should be able to figure out what to do. You're an intelligent human being. And so, as you go through your lives, don't wait for somebody to tell you that you don't need to come into work today. If you clearly know it's dangerous. If you lose your job, you lose your job. I mean, that's, it's a tough choice. It's a hard choice. But do you want to live? That's kind of a big decision to make. And not only do you want to live, do you want your wife to live? Do you want your parents to live? I mean, are you just like going to pretend you can go to work and everything's going to be fine when you go over to your parents' house for Easter dinner? No, we're not going anywhere. Now you'll notice I'm in my car and I'm going to work. But that is a decision that I've made, a decision that I feel like my risk today of getting this virus is incredibly low. Now there is a risk. Of course, there's a risk if I step outside and if I step outside and come in somewhat close contact with any human being. Okay, that's I said, but I'm going to go paint a house. There's only 2 people that live there. They just moved here from, and of course they could have picked it up somewhere. So, but only 2 people in the house. So, and I'm not in close proximity to them at any point. I'm painting. They're doing something else in some other part of the house because they don't want to bug me, which is great. We're not shaking hands. We're not having conversations standing 2 feet away from each other. If you've ever seen CSI, you know what happens during a conversation, right? It gets sprayed with aerosol spit from the other person. You know that, right? I may have to go to Lowe's and pick up some things. I'll just be careful. I'll sanitize my hands as soon as I get out of the store. Usually I sanitize my hands before I go into the store and then after I leave the store. I've sanitized and washed my hands more in the last 2 weeks than I have, my goodness, probably in the last 2 years. And so, I've made that determination for myself. It's not that, it's not perfect. I mean, the perfect thing to do would be just stay home. But at some point, you have to go out to do certain things. I mean, you have to go out to get food, for example. We went to Aldi on Sunday, their slowest day of the week, and we didn't come close to anybody except for the cashier. We immediately sanitized our hands. So, you just can only be so careful. And of course, if anybody's got a cough, I'm not going to go within 30 or 40 feet of them. And I understand the asymptomatic transmission of disease, but that's right. Unless you want to live under a rock. And so, but having said all that, I would not go to any place where there was any kind of a crowd. The crowd being like in a bar, or in a restaurant, or anywhere. Sporting event. Of course, you don't have to worry about that. Don't have to worry about going to school because they've all been shut down. How many I wonder how many students were being kept home before they shut the schools down. That would be an interesting thing to know. Were these parents concerned? I mean, having kids in school where they, no children have died, but they still can carry the disease and infect people. Which is how, if you're an older person, well, if you have kids or you have grandkids, that's 90% of the time you get sick is because something they brought home from school. I mean, or daycare. So, this whole society is primed for a rapid spread of this virus, and you just need to be as careful as you can. And I understand you can only be so careful. Unless you have an NP, whatever they are, 95 mask, but then you can be fairly safe. Because that seals your face off, and so you can't breathe anything. Which, if you could get one, it'd be a great idea, but you can't get it. So anyway, I just thought I'd talk about that a little bit. Don't wait. Don't wait for somebody to tell you what to do. Don't wait for me to tell you what to do. Just do it. Make an assessment of your own life, the risk you want to take, and then do it. And then, the consequences will be what the consequences will be. All right, if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the section below. Like and subscribe. We appreciate when you do. Stay safe out there if you have to go out. Keep yourself as clean as possible, especially your hands. See you on the next video.